For the purpose of getting a consistent sound level, some compression was applied.
What is up, guys, and welcome to Crosstalk, the channel on audio, microphones, and everything surrounding it. Thanks for watching. Today we're taking a look at the MKH8060 by Sennheiser, this little guy over here. We're going to do a little bit of review, and you might be wondering, why is there this guy over here in front of it? Well, that's the MKH416, and it's actually very similar to that. So we're going to kind of compare it to that. We're going to do a little bit of a comparison at the end. It's not going to be a full-blown comparison, but we're just going to check both mics out and see how they do. So, the MKH8060, what is it? You could kind of see it as the more modern version of the MKH416. It is a little bit more compact than the 416, and it also handles the side rejection. It kind of has a little bit more leeway than the 416. That is actually the biggest difference between it, other than the frequency response. So let's start on the outside. So on the outside, you can tell that it's a lot shorter than the 416. It's not half as long, but it's about 2/3 as long as I think is the 416. And also in terms of coating on it, the coating on it is actually much improved. Actually, Sennheiser calls it a non-reflective Nextel coating. So that's something they've trademarked, this particular coating. So I hope this coating actually works a lot better than the old coating that you had on the 416, which is notoriously terrible. If you just look at it, then you can already tell that just the coating on the 416 is absolutely terrible. It just scratches terribly, and it's just something that you, something they needed to improve on, and they've improved on that with the new models. So the new models, this is one of the two new shotgun mics that Sennheiser has released. This is the 8060, and then you also have an 8070, which is actually a really, really long one, super directional. So this one is a little bit more flexible in that sense. In terms of sound, I have to say the 8060 is, in my opinion, a superior mic to the 416, hands down. There's a couple of reasons for that. It sounds a lot more natural. The MKH416, actually, if you compare it to this mic, has a very hard edge to it compared to the 8060. I've read online for a couple of things about it, and I've read that the 416 was actually intended to be used for analog tape recording, where you would have a high frequency cut. That's why they had a hyped high end, right? That's basically the reason that the MKH416 has its signature sound, because it was tuned for those purposes. But if you look at the 8060, this is a mic that is tuned way more for today's purposes, for, you know, a modern sounding mic where you would make content that's displayed on the internet or something like that, or recorded digitally. That's what the 8060 is for. You notice that Sennheiser has a much more modern approach to this microphone. It's even a little bit modular, so you can screw off the backside. You can add a little module to it to make it completely digital. So you can record in AES format, for example, with this microphone if you wanted to. If you get that little module, and the rest of the housing of the microphone stays the exact same. So you can tell this microphone is just way more modern. So it's more natural sounding, in my opinion. It sounds a little bit more natural. It doesn't have that hard edge that the 416 has, which is a little bit undesirable, especially if you compare it to this microphone. It is also more sensitive. We can see that if we look at the mixer here. We can tell that the MKH416 on the right side, I put at about 40 dB of gain, while the MKH8060 has about 30 dB of gain, as you can see over there. So it's definitely a more sensitive microphone, which will lead to a lower self noise because it doesn't have as much self noise from the preamp. So there we go. I'll show you a little bit of the website now. So you can tell here, so this is the website, and let's see what they say about it. Very natural sound, undistorted off-axis sound. So they are very proud of what they did with the off-axis performance of this microphone. So when you move a little bit to the side to it, you know, you don't really notice a big difference in, you know, the frequency response changing at all. You can really tell that it stays very consistent. You know, the level goes down a little bit, but for the rest, it is pretty forgiving. So it's quite forgiving for that off-axis sound, which is very, you know, desirable, especially if you're if you have it on a boom pole. You're trying to record a video. It'll just give your sound guy a little bit more leeway. So extremely low distortion, high output signal, which we can see if we look at the mixer. Then you can see that the output signal of this mic is quite a little bit more than on the 416, for example. So you have a non-reflective neck style coating, and there you go. So it becomes a digital mic when combined with the MZD8000 digital module. So that's what I was talking about. So you can see a little bit more of the technical data over here. Your usual stats, the equivalent noise level of 11 dB. So if we look at the MKH416, we can tell that it has an equivalent noise level of 13 dB. So it's a little bit higher of an equivalent noise level of the mic itself, plus the 8060 also needs a little bit less of that preamp gain. I think that's about it. I think that's about all I have to say about this mic. I gotta say, it is just a more modern version of the 416, and I can definitely see this mic being used in voiceover studios soon, replacing some MKH416s in some places where that hard edge isn't desirable, and then they can just EQ those frequencies they want out of the 8060 from a more neutral perspective. Not to say this one is neutral though. If you look at the frequency response that I will put on the screen momentarily, then you'll be able to see that it is less hyped than the 416, but it definitely has a big boost of about 5 dB across the presence region. So there you go. I thank you a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.